Okay, I was laughing coming on the air today because Jaden and I off air were talking about wearables, and Jaden's like, "You want to hear about a wearable?" And so, so this is the news around OpenAI leading this. I think it's 250 million seed investment in Merge Labs, which is this new brain computer interface, right? So, and this is, I think the research lab was co-founded by Sam Altman, but anyway, so apparently, like, it's now up to 850 million. This reminds me a lot of Neuralink. Jaden, I'm wondering sort of like how much you've read about this. I know that you were sort of saying that you've been reading a bunch about it, but I don't know how deep you went on this. Because when I think about like wearables and things like that, I think about like, glasses and earbuds with cameras, but Neuralink and now Merge Labs. I mean, where are we going with this?
First of all, I think that the concept of this business has Mark Zuckerberg absolutely salivating. It's the
So
access
right.
to your brain
So
he could
right.
only dream of. You put on the Meta Ray-Bans and like you're close, but you are not inside. He is not inside your brain. So I think this is a really interesting startup. There's a whole bunch of funny things about it. I mean, the circular investment element of it is hilarious. Basically, Sam Altman starts this company and then OpenAI invests and gives him $250 million for the company. So happy birthday,
Oh,
Sam
right.
Altman. That'd be pretty sweet. I have no idea how these things work. Obviously, it's a company that like we'll get into what it can do, and so I can see some benefit to OpenAI. But like, I don't know like what the legal how it works when you have the CEO of a company putting $250 million into his own startup. But
Stop asking
whatever.
questions, Jaden. No more questions. We're going to get shut up. We're going to get cut off the air here.
Yeah,
Keep
that's
going.
true. Which, okay, speaking of which, conspiracy theory corner for like 2
Ooh,
seconds.
I'm here for this.
The only podcast I've ever had that like, I went through all sorts. You know me. I've made many podcasts. I've tried all these podcast strategies over the years. At one point, I was doing this podcast strategy, which I'm sure people listening to me, I'm sure you all hate me and say tisk tisk, and I accept your flame and your hate. It was a fun strategy, but I'll tell you what happened, and I'll give you my conspiracy theory with it. I made like 10 podcasts and they were named like the Elon Musk fan podcast, the Sam Altman fan podcast. I went through like every big tech person, and I'd post podcasts that were like sort of related to those people, but like really, and then I had a picture of that like celebrity or business leader as like the cover, which like to be honest, that's kind of like shady in a way because like some people might just search for Sam Altman, they see a picture of him and it's like the Sam Altman, and they might not see fan on there, and then they just
Right.
click it thinking it's his podcast. Okay, theoretically, that's what could happen. Anyways, it was a fun experiment. Most of those shows I've changed the names. Some of them are still out there. There's one called the Elon Musk Update, so you can go find that out there somewhere. In any case, the only one of all of those shows, I had all sorts of things happen. I had one of the Google co-founders, his family office, called me and told me to change the podcast. So that was kind of
No.
interesting.
Oh my
The
God.
only one, and of course I did and was like, oh, okay, no worries. Don't send anything formal. I'll just go ahead and change that. Okay, whatever. So now you see my black hat past. But let me give you my conspiracy theory, which is of those 10 podcasts I started, the only one that absolutely magically disappeared without a trace. There was no like email that was like, hey, this podcast is in violation. There was no phone call. There was no text. There was nothing. It just literally disappeared. Was the Sam Altman fan podcast. Disappeared without a trace, got erased from the servers. It was like I distributed it through Spotify for creators. It's no longer on the account. It's magically gone. I've never seen. I don't know how that's possible. I don't know what happened. Sam Altman has
I
magical
love
powers.
this.
So that's
By the
my
way,
conspiracy
Jaden, I'm
theory.
also here for a weekly conspiracy corner segment, which will now be ongoing. Don't worry, folks. This is no, but right, like I'm actually genuinely curious about that. But so what do you? Okay, so take us back here. You're looking
Yes,
at
sorry, rabbit
Neuralink.
hole.
You're looking at Merge Labs. You're thinking what?
Okay, so Merge Labs, very impressive, and it's impressive for many reasons. One of the biggest ones is a direct competitor to Neuralink, which, when Neuralink first came out, I don't know what you thought about it, Connor, but I was like, this is the creepiest company ever. They're like directly interfacing with your brain. People just want like, you know, AI embedded in their brain so you can Google anything by thinking about it. Like, that's just kind of weird and creepy. And do we really need to augment human brains with a computer chip? That was my initial reaction to Neuralink. And I think a lot of people had that. It changed though, because the Neuralink had this huge focus on, well, there's people with disabilities, there's people
Exactly.
that have lost function of their legs, their arms, and we're actually using these brain chips to help stimulate that. And there's a couple other companies that I've looked at where they'll like send electrical pulses so you think about things, and it has an electrical pulse to your there's one in particular where it's like a backpack this company made, and I'm sure the form factor is shrunk since they have seen this, but it's like an electrical pulse that is tapped into your spine. I know that sounds creepy, but it will literally pulse like the tendons and the parts of your leg to make you walk. So if you think about walking, you've completely lost access to your legs. These electric pulses on your spine will like make you walk. And I saw this video of this guy that's never walked before wearing this AI computer backpack tied into his brain, and he's walking. Like, that is crazy. And Neuralink
Yeah.
is doing a lot of things like that. They have a famous one where there's a guy right now, he can just think, and he uses a computer screen. He can game. He doesn't have access to his arms. And so, anyways, that is amazing. And I actually think for people with disabilities, like, why, like, how could you think, oh, it's too creepy? Like, oh yeah, easy for me to say because everything, I have full function of my whole body, and this like poor person, if they could get access to it, would do anything for it. So I think I kind of like retraced my steps on that.
Mm-hmm.
This is another level though with Merge Labs, because Merge Labs doesn't feel like, and they did say that they're going to focus on people with disabilities,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not the core function, and it feels very much like we want AGI inside of our brain, and that's kind of Sam Altman's like MO, and I'll get into why. But anyways, just those are the two directions of this company where it could go. So I'd be curious to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I on Neuralink and everything else, you're absolutely right. It, in a way, it sort of like feels creepy. It reminds me, Jaeden, a lot of, there's a ton of, which we're not covering today, but talk about, AI in healthcare, right? From OpenAI, from Gemini, from everybody, right? Like, okay, you're going to put in your records, you're going to figure this out. And even, I think it was like, I kind of tweaked. So I was just skiing for the last week, right? Like, and I kind of tweaked my back. I'm old. And I was putting it into ChatGPT, and the first thing ChatGPT was saying, listen, I can't diagnose you. And then it goes on to completely diagnose me,
Yeah.
completely accurate, everything else. And we've been doing this since the dawn of time with WebMD and everything like that. And Jaeden, I just wonder, and neither one of us is really qualified to talk about this, so I want to sort of like take this with a grain of salt, but something like Neuralink, especially with disabled folks and everything else, like, what's the worst case scenario? Like, if AGI or if AI kind of goes off the rails a little bit or something like that, so this doesn't work, short of obviously harming the person, but if it's not working, I feel like, and I have no idea, but I would almost want to take that risk. I'm like, hey, if this gives me a shot at this, it's sort of like experimental medicine and things like that. The thing, especially in this case, Jaeden, that I'm also curious about, because we're not at a stage where this is. First of all, I feel like I've seen this scene in the movie before. It's the before. It's like, yeah, isn't this great? And then like the after is this post-apocalyptic wasteland. But the idea with something like this, just where we are, and even before we like really speculate as what this is, what does this do in like competition right now? OpenAI is getting a little tramped on these days. Would you agree with that? I mean, like,
Yeah.
Anthropic is the belle of the ball since, let's call it, December, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that's fair? Gemini is belle of the ball since November, maybe October, kind of thing, with Gemini, new Gemini models coming out, things like that. OpenAI, rumors of new stuff coming out, but definitely has been left behind. Now, don't count them out, obviously. But we've recently also seen the story about Siri and, Siri partnering with Google, which is unbelievable. I'm super happy about that. It doesn't make any sense. It's, that's maybe it makes sense, but not for Apple to me. Anyway, that's a story for another time. But I'm wondering, Jaeden, if you see OpenAI as sort of like spitfiring a little bit here, right? Because they don't have a cloud service, so they can't make money on cloud, right? That's the biggest thing to me, is like, how is OpenAI going to make all this money back? But devices, if they can lead the league in devices, and if they can lead the league in the same way Mark Zuckerberg was trying to set up Meta literally as the metaverse and be like the default metaverse that we're all going to live in 10 years, which now is obviously crumbling around us, is this what OpenAI's strategy is? Because AGI can't be a strategy. It doesn't make sense as a strategy. It makes, because everybody's going to catch up with it. It does make sense when you look at what Apple has done, create devices that are super sticky. It does make sense when you say people refer to this as AI as ChatGPT. Like, that's another competitive advantage. Do you see this? And by the way, another thing I heard was that Apple was not partnering with OpenAI because they're starting to see them as competitors in the device market. I don't know why they don't see Google as competitors in the device market, but with this, do you see OpenAI maybe pivoting to sort of something where they really start to exclusively focus on something like a Neuralink type product? Because there's actual real logic to that.
Yeah, so I think you're 100% right as far as the devices goes. This is going to be a massive place that OpenAI spends a lot of time and energy, because we know they're working with Johnny Ive on I/O, which they've acquired. And now they're doing this. They're doing this in a very interesting way, and I'm curious to see where it goes as far as devices. Obviously, this Merge Labs is very deeply integrated with OpenAI because it receives so much money from them. But listen to how this works, because this is so fascinating. Here's a direct quote from a TechCrunch article, and it's quoting what they said about this. It says Merge Labs said it intends to reach these feats non-invasively by developing entirely new technologies that connect with neurons using molecules instead of electrodes to transit and receive information using deep reaching modalities like ultrasound. So Neuralink, you have to do a surgery, you cut a little hole in your skull, and then you put these electrodes in and it's touching your brain. They're going to try to use ultrasound, and I don't know, maybe you wear a hat. Maybe it's the AI hat that you wear. And like when you put this magical hat on your head, ultrasounding into your brain is ChatGPT. This is crazy.
It's crazy. Jaeden, by the way, this is where I wish I could flash forward in the future and replay our episode here in like 3 years or something, be like, so it sounds like, because it's going to sound, whatever it is, it's not going to be what we think it is going to be. I love episodes like this where we just kind of get to speculate a little bit. Jaeden, I know we're coming up on time. Anything else we want to share with them? Because right now it's sort of a little bit of an episode around like, hey, here's what I think is coming. Anything else you sort of like want to tie into this?
You can't shut me down on the show yet until we go over a couple more of these quotes. The first one from their blog post that is so fascinating. They said, brain-computer interfaces, BCIs, are an important new frontier. They open new ways to communicate, learn, and interact with technology. They will create a natural, human-centered way for anyone to seamlessly interact with AI. And then there's a quote somewhere in this blog. I can't find it right now, but basically it says that, well, okay, so Sam Altman, he wrote a blog post back in like 2017, for those that don't know, where he has this thing called The Merge, and he basically said that somewhere between 2025 and 2075, so we're right on track. If you go look at Sam Altman's blog post called The Merge, he says we're right on track for merging human brains with AI. And he said that it's the best case scenario for humanity surviving against superintelligence if we can merge with them. So he said, this is a direct quote from his blog. He said, although the merge has already begun, it's going to get a lot weirder. We will be the first species ever to design our own descendants. My guess is that we'll be either the biological bootloaders for digital intelligence and then fade into an evolutionary tree branch, or we can figure out what a successful merge looks like.
Okay, note to self, I'm cutting you off early. If I had cut you like now, I should have cut you off 3 minutes ago. Or no, sorry, 2.5 minutes ago. Because what is this nonsense about? Like, this is our way to survive AGI. Like, we have to join them. This sounds like, World War II, all like capitulation or something like that.
Chat GPT blog post.
I get it. But what is this craziness? My gosh. All right, Jaeden, we need entirely new episodes on this. We need to start new podcasts on this. My gosh, it's going to be called Conspiracy Corner with Jaeden and Conor, and this is just going to be amazing. Listen, we could keep on going, Jaeden. I'm scared about what you're going to reveal next about Sam Altman's podcast or blog post from 8 years ago. So I will just end on this note, just to say, hey, listen, if you have not checked out AIbox.ai, please do. It's absolutely awesome. It's the best stuff out there to sort of like test different models against each other. I do this all the time between Claude, Gemini, ChatGPT, Copilot, etc. I'm just constantly switching back and forth. Jaeden has created a system where somehow I only need to pay $19 a month. Not sure how, but it does so much more. Some really cool features coming out. Check out AIbox.ai. Guys, we will see you in the next episode. Thanks for joining us.
And one last thing, if you want to see the video for this podcast or any other podcast, check the link in the description. We'll have a link to the YouTube video where you can follow along with some of the articles and show notes that we talk about along the way. All right, thanks so much for tuning in. Catch you guys next time.